My name is David Finn Paulsen, son of Finn Bergstead Paulsen and Sarah Melissa Broadbent Paulsen. I was born April 5th, 1947 in the LDS Hospital in Salt Lake City, Utah. I grew up till 5 years old on a little triplex on West Temple next to Dirks Field. And then when I was 5 years, we moved to 1940 East, just off 33rd South. Thinking back of my early childhood memories, one of the first ones I have is a baseball game. The kids saying play ball at the Dirks Field there across the street from where we live.
My name's Louisa Paulsen Greaves, and I was born May 14th, 1958 in Salt Lake City at the LDS Hospital. One of my first memories is in the living room of Mom and Dad's house, the house we grew up in, with a kind of an empty front room. There's not much furniture, so it must have been a new house. I don't know, it felt like the carpet was new, but anyway, exercising to Jack Lane with my mom.
The other, after we moved at 5 years old, we moved to 1940 East, and there I made friendships with some of the boys that lived right there close. And we had a kid that came through from the other street named John Eberhardt, and he wasn't one of us, and we were throwing dirt clods at him. He later became one of my best friends in elementary school.
I'm Margaret Ann Paulsen Larson, but most people know me as Margie, and nobody knows where my nickname came from. But I was the first child born to Finn and Sarah Paulsen on 3181 South, 1940. One of my most early memories that I have, and I don't even know for sure how old I was, but we used to go in an open air train, and we would get on the train and ride out to the Great Salt Lake.
When I was younger, one of the things that we always looked forward to was going to the ward shows. Every Friday night there'd be a movie down at the ward. And they always had a little snack bar. We could buy snacks and watch a movie with everybody came from the state. That was a fun activity.
My oldest relative that I can remember was my grandpa Broadbent. Mom was the youngest or the second youngest of 12 living children. And so my grandpa was born in 1871. And one of the things I remember him telling me that he can remember seeing President Young when he visited their little Santaquin town, and all the primary kids lined the streets as he came into town. So I've always thought, well, that's interesting. To my grandpa and I, we remember all the prophets of the church except for the prophet Joseph.
My name is Shauna Marie Paulsen Robin, and I was born November 1st, 1949. My middle name is Marie, and I was named after Borghild Marie. So I feel very privileged that I have her name also. One of my earliest childhood memories is waiting for my dad to get home from work, because he had a big black lunchbox. And he always saved something for me inside that lunchbox. And to this day, I can't remember any of the things that were in the lunchbox. But I just remember how excited I was to have my dad come home so I could check the lunchbox and see what was inside.
My name is Susan Paulsen Harmon. I was born March 4th, 1955 in Salt Lake City, Utah at the LDS Hospital. And when Mom brought me home from the hospital, Grandpa Broadbent thought that she brought home the wrong baby because I had a lot of black hair and he thought I looked like a papoose.
As I think about my childhood and just different things I've gone through, I think as I picture as we went down to Brazil, I always kind of felt I was a little bit in a dream, that I was going to wake up and it wasn't really real. And that Brazil was, that maybe it was just a dream. And so to return to Brazil and to just really see it as it was kind of a great experience.
The oldest living relative that I remember, and don't even have to remember that I have, is my Uncle Don. I just went to his 100-year-old birthday today.
Because my grandmother, Broadbent, had a stroke on the day that I was blessed, Grandma and Grandpa lived with us for a lot of the time till Grandma died. And but one of the early memories I have of Grandma, and I guess early memory that I have, is I remember Grandma used to dry my hair. And because she was paralyzed on one side, it was just with one hand. She would just run her fingers through my hair. I'd sit right there by her wheelchair and she would run her fingers through my hair to dry my hair.
My grandfather, Broadbent, always taught us that we had believing blood, and that was certainly the case for me. I've always had a testimony of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And one experience that I can think of in my youth is I went to a conference in high school with some of my friends, and as the prophet walked into the tabernacle, the congregation stood up and started singing, "We thank thee, O God, for a prophet." And I got that tingling feeling that started at the top of my head and went all the way down to the tip of my toes. And I knew that that was the Holy Ghost testifying to me that President Harold B. Lee is a prophet of God.
As I think about the Spirit and how we are touched by the Spirit, if we're willing to listen to the Spirit, the experience I think of is when Keith, we were riding in a car and he got his head stuck, and all of a sudden the Spirit came to me and I said to Craig, I think Keith is dying, or Keith is dead, is what I think I said, because he wasn't moving. And I know that the Spirit prompted me to say that to Craig, and we were in the car, he pulled over the car, he pulled Keith out and he wasn't breathing, and he gave him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation when he came back. That's one powerful experience in my life when the Spirit told me.
I was born in a family of 5. I'm the oldest, the only son. I have 4 sisters. The oldest is Shauna, and Shauna was a very innocent person, and very kind of follows, very strict in following the lines. Susie was always known in the family as the powerful hand covered with a silk glove. She was a very determined young lady, but had real ability to work with people. The next was Margaret Ann, and my early memories of her is that she was a little more rebellious. And I remember she and Mother having a lot of discussions about the length of skirts. And yet Margie has turned out to be one of the more straight-laced persons in the family. And then the baby was Louisa. Her actual name is Louise, but when we moved to Brazil, Louise is a boy's name, and so she has ever since been known as Louisa. And what I remember is her as in Brazil, when we first got to Brazil, within just a week or two, she was out playing with the kids and talking with them and having a great time, and the rest of us were very more reticent or shy about speaking Portuguese.
Some of the things I did for fun when I was younger is playing games at night, you know, Bears Are Out Tonight, or Hide and Go Seek, or Red Rover, fire extinguishing, toilet papering, getting into a little bit of trouble like that.
Speaking about what part religion has played in our life, it has played absolutely everything in our life. From the time I was little, I heard about my grandfather, Broadbent, serving as a state president, as a mission president. My own father, from the time I was little, was in leadership positions. My brother-in-laws serving in leadership positions, my husband serving in leadership positions, my sons serving missions, my nephews and nieces serving missions. It's just part of our blood. It's part of our DNA.
David is the oldest in our family and the only brother. And even though he teased us a lot, I adore him. And in the words of my grandma Moore, he is good as gold. And Shauna is thoughtful and compassionate, and she shares her talents. She blesses people's lives through her many talents. Margie has a strong sense of family, and she teaches by example. And the way she shows her love is by giving of her time. Louisa is a caregiver, and she makes sure that everybody's happy. And she is accepting of others, and she's forgiving, and she's non-judgmental.
So I went to Evergreen, and then my high school years, I went to Skyline High School. I loved school, and I was student body officer in my senior year at Skyline High School. And then I attended Brigham Young University and graduated with my teaching degree in elementary education. And there, the one thing that was really fun is I was with the BYU International Folk Dancing team.
Mike and I were married June 12, 1969 in the Salt Lake Temple. Mike is a very kind man. He has a great testimony of the gospel, and I appreciate his inquisitive mind, and he likes to know why things are the way they are, and he is very, very steadfast in his devotion to the Lord. He is very loyal to me and to my children. He's been a wonderful provider and a wonderful example.
My oldest brother is David, and David is quiet and thoughtful and one of the brightest human beings I know, and he is very duty-bound. Shauna is my older sister, and she is practically perfect. That's what we always say about Shauna. I've always tried to follow in her footsteps. And Shauna is very sure and very strong in her beliefs for what is right. Susie is, my father always said, Susie is the iron hand in a velvet glove, and of all of my siblings, Susie is without guile. She is kind, and she always listens, and she is always interested in what you're doing. She's probably the very most like my mother. And Louisa is very open-hearted, and always is thinking of others and wants to make others happy, and is very upset if anyone feels bad, because she would never do anything to make anyone feel bad.
Hobbies, things to do. Reader, I enjoyed reading. Since then, returning, one of my favorite things is hiking or skiing or just being out in the mountains. Lately, I've taken up rappelling down in the Canyonlands area, Zions.
Okay, I actually went to Evergreen Junior High and then Olympus High School. And my best subject was probably English and art, and my worst was a D. I got a D. I got my only D. It's out. I wasn't going to say that, but it was in math. And it's a funny story with that. Aunt Deirdre was a substitute teacher, and the day that they were handing out report cards, she was my teacher, homeroom, and handed out my report card that had a D on it. So the family knew. Okay, I would say David is strong and a quiet leader with compassion. I would say Shauna is capable of many things, and someone that not only the members of her family admire, but anyone who knows her admires her. Margie is giving. I'd say that's her strong point, is just how giving she is to others. And I'd say that Susie has an open heart. She's also very giving, generous, compassionate, and is a good friend.
I started school at the International School in Curitiba, Brazil. When we came home, I went to Libby Edward Elementary. And junior high was at Evergreen, and high school I went to Olympus. And my worst subject was science, and I enjoyed English. The colleges I attended, I went to BYU for 2 years, and then I went to the University of Utah for 1 year, and back in those days they had an associate degree in business. So that's what I graduated in from the U.
At Skyline High School, I had such fun high school years. I was in the pep club, and I was an officer for seminary. 1 year I was the historian for the seminary, and then I was student body officer for Skyline High School. So, go Eagles! My brother David, we always thought David was special because he was the only boy in the family. And he was special. He's a great man, a great testimony, and one who loves family. He has a great love for his family and for the traditions of his family. And I appreciate that he is so willing to keep our family together. And Margie would do anything for any of us. She just is so loving and so kind and so ready to help anyone, whether it's, no matter what it is, she wants to be right there in the middle of everything that's going on. And then Susie, how we love Susie. She's one of the most thoughtful people I know, remembering everybody's birthdays, any special occasion, anything that's special in your family. Susie remembers you. And so we love Susie. And then Louisa, she's the baby in the family, and she always will be. And Louisa's the one who has probably, she's always had so many friends who just adore her. And I don't know anyone who doesn't love Louisa.
To describe Craig, I would say he is very duty-bound to do what is right. He is very honest. He always wants to do what is right. And if ever he feels he's done something wrong, he makes it right. I think the thing I admire most about him is the way he cares for other people. Even the person he's standing next to in the grocery store line, he tries to strike up a conversation. And especially with our children, he has really tried in his life to always tell them how much he loves them and how much confidence he has in their choosing the right.
I have 4 children, and Andrew is the oldest. He was the first, and he has been a very easy child to raise. And he's calm and good-tempered and strong and driven. And Preston is the second, and he is loving, considerate of others, has more friends than anyone I know. Maybe Megan's a close second, but he's a good man. And Cameron, probably the best roommate I've ever had. He has a mind of his own. He's good at saving money. Glad I have him. And then there's Megan. And Megan is talented in many ways that come out new things all the time. She's musical and artistic and athletic, and she's well-rounded, and I love them all.
One great tradition that our family had is every summer we went with a group of families, and we went to Colder Bay and Bear Lake and Moon Lake, and it was something that we always looked forward to. There were about 8 to 10 families, and our group was called the Lamborn Gang, and it's a wonderful memory. We got married March 19th, 1976 in the Salt Lake Temple, and that evening we had a reception just at our home. It was just a simple reception, and it was a rainy day, I remember that, and it was just a fun, casual evening of a gathering and celebration at Mom and Dad's home. How do you describe Wade? He's wild and crazy. Well, that's actually very good for me because I'm a more serious person. But Wade is compassionate. He's a great friend. He's interested in others. He loves walking through the neighborhood, spreading sunshine. He's a very hard worker. He would drop everything to help our children. Shows the Lord that he loves him by the way he lives his life. He's passionate about life, and I love him.
I met Deirdre Gay Murray at BYU the year after I got home from my mission. I was taken by Deirdre. I thought she was a very beautiful woman. And the best part is well educated. And I remember Sarah being very worried that I was being hoodwinked by this sophisticated Eastern girl. And she was sophisticated. But it's been a great marriage, and I think what I admire most about her is her ability to communicate with others. I find it the most frustrating at ward socials, and yet she is just she's a great teacher, and all her students love her, and I think that's an indication of where her real strengths are as a person. It's now been 43 years that we've been married, and it was one of the toughest things I had to learn, but I think the success for every marriage is learning to say, yes, ma'am. Deirdre and I have 5 children. The oldest is Sean, and Sean is, I think part of being a first child is you're kind of very driven and directed, and a heightened sense of right and wrong. The next was Chandra. Chandra was always a little more withdrawn, but really excelled in dancing. And in fact, she danced from the time she was about 5 years old through college. The third is Scott. Scott was always a little more free, I'd say. Deirdre was always the worrier in the family, and she kind of worried about where Scott was going, especially when I was working in California. But I remember coming back, and when we'd have family prayer and I'd ask him to pray, he always gave the most wonderful prayers, and I knew that he was heading down the right path because of the prayers he offered. The next child is Laura, and Laura was just a free spirit. I remember we had a neighbor here that babysat her one day while Deirdre was going somewhere, and when the neighbor brought Laura back, she said, "Did she ever quit singing?" Because she was always just singing and humming and just. And then Marissa, she's a great storyteller, and she loves whatever she does. She makes a great story out of it and loves to tell it. And she's the one I think I relate to best on a communicating level.
I think one of the hardest things I've had to go through as a mother is when we found out that Eric had thyroid cancer. And even though if you have cancer, that's a great one because there's such great medical means to stop the cancer, but still that concern of having a child with cancer and what was going to be the outcome of that.
One of the life-changing experiences and the most difficult thing we've gone through as a family is losing our sweet little grandson, Graham. It's been very difficult to watch the suffering of Jake and Heather and knowing that as their mother, there's nothing I can do to help them. But the thing that I'm grateful for is to know that life is eternal and we will see Graham again.
Our children, Michelle is the oldest, and Michelle is one who's had us all laying in a line since she was 2 or 3 years old. But Michelle is one who would do absolutely anything for her family. She just loves to be in the middle of family and keep us all together. Carrie is one who is so loving and forgiving, and she's one who has done a lot to help, particularly while we've been on our mission, keep our family close together. And then there's Finn, Michael Finn, who's one who is always so much fun to be around. And he is one who always wants to make sure that everyone is included, and he's always looking out for the underdog. And then there's Matthew Leonard. Matt is one who can really size things up. He can tell, he's one who is very wise beyond his years, and he's pretty witty also. And then there's Natalie. As her father says, Natalie's gold. And she is so loving, and we all love Natalie.
I'd say maybe some of my strengths are I'm forgiving, feel like I'm strong in some ways and can push forward and move forward, and I try not to look back. I think sometimes I can be funny. One of the most challenging experiences that I have had is just being a single mom and worrying that I'm able to do everything that I need to do to raise my kids right, and just doing a few things on my own, but I've done them.
I think the time I am the most proud of my children is when they choose the right. The characteristics I think about Keith is he's creative, he's bright, he's detailed-minded, he has unusual perspective and a great sense of humor, and he has set the path for his brothers and sisters to follow. Matt is quiet and calm, patient, and he has never liked discord, and he never wants to toot his own horn. Eric is inquisitive and has been since he could start asking questions. He is blunt, he tells it like it is, even when it's uncomfortable, and he is probably my child who cares what is happening in our family, and he loves to plan family events. Emily is a soul full of compassion. She's very much a Mary rather than a Martha personality. And she tries to live by the Spirit every day in raising her little family. And Lisa, everyone in our family would say that she is the most pure in heart. She thinks of others and never wants to offend. And since she was a little girl, people have always referred to her as an angel.
I guess the thing that I want to most be remembered for is loving acceptance of others.
Sarah Jane is named after my mom, Sarah. And Sarah is like a ray of sunshine. She is unselfish. She's always doing something for someone else. Jacob J. is named after Grandpa J. And Jake is kind-hearted and fun-loving. He's great to others and he has many friends. He has a missionary companion who told me that he called him Happy Harmon because he always had a smile on his face. Samuel Finn is named after Grandpa Finn. And Sam is determined and focused, and he accomplishes anything that he sets his mind to. And Benjamin Wade, of course, is named after his dad. And Ben is adventurous. He has a great mind, and he loves to learn. When all is said and done, I would want to be remembered for doing what I said I would do. And I would want all the important people in my life, my grandchildren, my children, my husband, my brothers and sisters, my nieces and nephews to know how much I love them and they've been such an important part in my life.
Another hard thing for our family was when Matt had a cardiac arrest at the age of 24, and it was caused because he had an extra circuit in his heart that just beat his heart to death. But the good thing about it is that he got Allison out of that experience.
What do I hope that people remember about me? And I hope they feel, one is that I was consistent, I lived what I lived as the beliefs I taught, that I was a friend, and that I was just an all-around good person.
When all is said and done, and I'm all done with this life, I think I would like to be known for choosing the right, having courage to do what is right, and standing for the truth.
When all is said and done, I want to be remembered as a faithful and loving daughter of Heavenly Father.